Well, welcome, Stephen Lang, Slang as his friends call him. You all know him well. I'm sure everybody has seen him in certainly many of the Gettysburg pieces and then a lot of other amazing work from Avatar all the way back. And of course, you hear his voice in this building all the time. So we're just going to have a sort of a short conversation that will involve questions from all of you in a little bit about, I mean, what is at this point a 30-year, 40-year association with Gettysburg.
Yep.
And coming back, I mean, almost annually, certainly regularly.
Well, I guess not so much. It has been annually at a certain time, but I try to space it out now because I don't want to become what Shakespeare would term the cuckoo in June. Who knows what play is that from? Anybody know?
Midsummer?
Henry IV, Part 1, where Henry accuses or cautions Hal, his son, about becoming the cuckoo in June, which is seen but not regarded. And I never would want to become commonplace around Gettysburg, so I'm not planning to come back for at least 3 weeks now.
Where did it begin? An interest in the Civil War, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania? What's the initial
Well, I
connection
was
here?
always the movies interested me when I was a boy. I remember seeing the Red Badge of Courage and being very moved by that. And as you may know, when I was young, I was a big Errol Flynn fan as well, and he always kind of personified whether it was Custer or I can't remember who else, but he did his share of Civil War kind of work as well. So I mean, aside from the Civil War, it sort of prompted my my appreciation or sparked an interest in history. But when I really look back at the history that I was looking at as put out there by Hollywood, what I realized it's actually less history than it is myth. In fact, because Hollywood has always been interested in promoting the myth rather than the fact, and I'm down with that, But over the years, I've come to appreciate the history as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then Gettysburg in particular, I mean, was there any, as a student or in college or anything, I know you were in both high school and college in Pennsylvania.
Well, I gotta say, it really is, like so many others, it was the Killer Angels that did it for me. I can't say I was any more interested in the Civil War than I might have been in the Revolutionary War, and at a certain time. And I'm still into the Revolution, or even I probably was more interested in World War II than I was in the Civil War, just because that was the war that everyone was talking about when I was a kid and everything, and all the films that were being shown were World War II films. So I was into that. I was into the history of that a bit. But it was really Michael Shara's book that really just prompted me to get so interested in Gettysburg, yeah.
How did you get to that? I mean, it was a Pulitzer Prize. Were you recommended to read it, or how did you get to that book?
A buddy of mine had read it and said, this book is really amazing. And so I read it and I agreed. I just thought it was wonderful, and it just, it reads like popcorn. It reads like a movie, to me.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to play George Pickett after I read it. And then, 17 years later, I got to do it, and that's a lucky thing in life when you actually get to do something like that. And for an actor, you can imagine how rare that really is for that to happen. But I was fortunate that it did.
So you read the book. I mean, there's many characters. There's many great characters in that book. So what struck you about Pickett when you read the novel that was you?
I had the hair for it. I had massy, really lovely hair. I could look at my hair for hours, I also have always liked smelling good, too. I've always liked This is my
Speaking of good Lang hair.
Speaking about beautiful hair and smelling good. Come here. This is my grandson Ike. He is not named after Ike Clanton, just so you know that. Right? But he does have the massy. My hair was just like this. Go on, get off. Anyway, so but I think that I think that I love what Pickett brought to the party. And in a way, I always felt that Pickett brought to the party what Jeb Stuart would have brought to the party had Jeb Stuart actually been at the party. Because Jeb really was the kind of singing cavalier, but he just isn't there, and when he does get there, he's just getting a knot yanked in his tail is what's happening to him. But Pickett it becomes really the cavalier of the whole thing. So he does represent the myth that was then, of course, propagated and began by Sally Corbell, by his wife. So I liked that about the role. I like being the exuberant spark, because everybody else is a downer. I mean, come on. We like Longstreet, but let's face it, yeah. He's depressing as can be, and of course, the
fact that he
Chamberlain is, just kind of, he's fabulous, but he's kind of priggish. He's a Maine guy. I mean, probably the guy who Pickett would get along with best would be Kilrain. The two of them could sit and have a drink together, and of course, and he's the only character who actually is not a historical character in the piece. Yeah.
So you read the book, and you're obviously having a very successful career on stage and on the small screen, on the big screen. And what's the story? How do you get into the film? How do you become Pickett? Like, how does that happen?
I was playing Hamlet at the time. I was doing it at the Roundabout on Broadway. And my Laertes was a wonderful actor who I'm sure many of you know, Billy Campbell. He's well known as the Rocketeer and many, many other things. And he's well known as, in his time, as being the handsomest man in Hollywood. He was a really good-looking dude. Now he's old and gnarly like me, but he was a good-looking guy, Anyway, he was Laertes, and he says to me before performance one day, he says, "Oh, there's this guy coming to see the show today. His name is Ron Maxwell, and he's going to direct a movie of the Killer Angels, and he's looking at me because I'm up to play Joshua Chamberlain." And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, whoa. And this goes back to, I've always wanted to play George Pickett, right? But so I kind of made a check mark in my brain, which I promptly forgot because I was playing Hamlet. And that's a big dose, Anyway, after that performance, I'm walking out of the theater and a man comes up to me and puts out his hand and says, "Hello, I'm Ron Maxwell." And I just kicked right in and I put my hand out and I said, "Hello, I'm George Pickett." That's absolutely a true thing. And he kind of, his head kind of went back a little bit, and he looked at me and he said, "You free for breakfast tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And we got him. By the time the breakfast was over, I had been cast as George Pickett. Now the really tragic coda to the story is, of course, is that Billy Campbell didn't get cast as Chamberlain. That went to Jeff Daniels. But Billy did get cast as Pitzer, and who gets the only laugh in the entire film of Gettysburg, And Billy has gone on to have a very, very distinguished career, of course. So no loss there, I guess. Yeah.
So you do it. So you come here in the early '90s.
Yeah.
You do the film.
Yeah.
I mean, you're part of all of that goes on, and then it comes out. It was originally a miniseries called The Killer Angels. It becomes Gettysburg and is a theatrical release. Mm-hmm. And then, at that point, do you realize that you're connected to Gettysburg? I mean, when does this sort of...
I don't know. I mean, yeah, kind of. You know, you did it. You have, after you finish a film like this and you have such a good time with your colleagues and form a relationship with your horse, it's you know, you get kind of little postpartum blues when you're done or something like that. And then at some point an opportunity came to, they wanted to continue. I received a message about maybe coming and doing something in support of Gettysburg, and I was happy to do so. The first thing that I really recall is back, they wanted to start this idea of doing a new visitor center and a new museum here, and I was invited to a party on Steve Forbes's yacht in Manhattan Harbor. So it was I lived in Manhattan, so it was, you know, quite easy for me to say yes and to go there, and I went there and you know, kind of hobnobbed with Steve Forbes, and things kind of, the ball started rolling from there, and little by little I began doing what I could to help. They wanted to raise, I know, like $100 million, and so you know, it's a lot easier for me to contribute my time than it is my money. But I didn't have that much money at the time, and so I just began doing stuff. And you know how it is, one thing leads to another, and I just began. I found that it was I had feelings about the place. I had, you know, it kind of inspired me a little bit. It always, well, coming to Gettysburg is. It's kind of equal parts inspiration and sobering at the same time, and it's a very reflective place to be. It tends to put a lot of things into perspective in a way. And at this point, I also like going there because it's a place for me to say hello to so many people who are fellow citizens and friends, and who we don't necessarily agree on everything, but we can always get along on a level, and that's the kind of America that I would really like to be part of. So anyway, that's the thing.
And you're not done with the Shara scripted Civil War films either. I mean, you of course do Gods and Generals around that time. Yeah,
I did Gods
so
and
how does
Generals.
that? I mean, you're Pickett, and then you become another Confederate general, obviously not,
Right.
who does not make it to Gettysburg, famously, but.
That was totally surprising that Ron would consider me for the part, because, you know, you become very identified with something. And my thoughts on it was, I don't think the general public will care one way or the other about this, but I was concerned about the reenacting community, because I had kind of, you know, they identified me with Pickett, and to a certain segment, I suppose I had endeared myself to that community. And so I wasn't sure they would accept me as Jackson, but they did, and so that was great, yeah. And that was quite an adventure, very different experience, doing, you know, Jackson. I always say that, as Malvolio says in the letter that's written, you all know, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. And I always felt that George Pickett had greatness, such as it is, thrust upon him, because there was nothing inherently great about George Pickett.
His hair?
At all, except his hair and his odor. But Jackson did achieve greatness, as it were, through dint of his own hard work. Thomas Jackson was an achiever, a self-made achiever. He pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. He applied himself with the same kind of, what's the word? The steadfast tenacity that an Abraham Lincoln applied himself to things with. Didn't come easy to Jackson, but he was with it. And in many ways, Jackson was a very modern man. He was very holistic in terms of his approach to medicine and to his physical activities. There's so much about Jackson that I found very admirable. And so to me, Jackson was a man who did achieve greatness. And then, of course, there's who is born great. Well, that would be Robert E. Lee, greatness, again, being put in quotes there, because he was born into it. I mean, he's Tidewater, the Lees, you know, and he really was born to be a commanding general, it seems to me. So it probably is in the cards that I will play Robert E. Lee at some point. Or not, you know.
Yeah. And then that after Gods, you returned, not so much for the Civil War, but you returned to history and military men with your own writing and performing a one-man show. I hope you've gotten a chance to see it, Beyond Glory, which is...
When they were, yes, I did Beyond Glory, because as you may know, Gods and Generals was a total flop for a number of reasons, not all of which are wrong-headed reasons. But certainly wasn't because of the effort that we put into it. But I was a little bit chagrined after it, because I thought I'll probably never work again. And so that's when I wrote Beyond Glory, which is the story of 8 Medal of Honor recipients who lived to tell the tale from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And that turned into a solo show that I performed over 400 times, and did it all over the world and on Broadway, and ultimately ended up making a film of it, and it kind of defined my life for a number of years, and it was great. And so that's what I did.
Well, there's a connection to that you get very fit for that role physically. And Jim Cameron.
Oh, well, the story there is, I mean, it has in a nutshell, what happened was I was about to open it in 2007, I was about to open Beyond Glory on Broadway. And I get a call saying that, kind of a stunned call, I might add, from my agent, saying that they've had a call from James Cameron's office, and he has a script he'd like me to read. And I was like, me? Okay, great, fabulous. And they sent it over, and you know, I had to sign a blood oath that I would not reveal anything, you know, to read it. And I read it in my dressing room, and I'm in previews to do Beyond Glory, which I've been working on since 2003. So forget about Jim Cameron. This is a big deal for me. I'm about to open my own play that I worked on all by myself. And when I first started doing it down at this little theater in Arlington, Virginia, there would be nights when there would be 2 people in the audience. You know, I mean, I'm not kidding. That's what it was. I remember the first night I had 20 people. My stage manager got excited. He said, "There's 20 people out there."
I mean, that was at Arlington, right? I mean,
that was
at Lee's former estate.
Well, that was it. We couldn't get, the only theater we could get was the theater at the Women in Military Service National Memorial, which is at the gates of Arlington National Cemetery. Now, first of all, nobody even knew there was a theater there in the first place. And number 2, Washington is not so much a theater town, it's a subscription town. So people, you know, Mildred would say, "Harry, we have tickets for the arena stage on April 22nd. It doesn't matter what they're going to see, they have a subscription and that's what they're going to see. That's what subscription theater is kind of about. You support the local cultural institution, right? I wasn't a local cultural institution. We were a show that was opening there, so nobody came until a great critic from the Washington Post did a review of it, which was a really, really terrific review, and they started coming. And what was going to be a 4-week run, we ended up having closed it after 10 or 12 weeks just because I had other stuff I had to do. So anyway, so ultimately the road leads it to Broadway, which is great. And then I get this script for this thing called Avatar. And it kind of blows my mind because it's clearly the best role in the thing. And push comes, you know, it's a long story. I love to tell the story to actors because I can make them cry.
Well, you had auditioned for Jim like
I did audition for him 18 years before for Aliens, but the point is that so I'm opening on Broadway with my show, and meanwhile in California, the casting director for Avatar is a woman named Margie Simpkin. And she's an old theater rat from New York, she's working out there for Fox or something, and she's casting director on this big film that Jim Cameron is doing. And she is looking through the New York Times theater section, and she sees a big ad for this play Beyond Glory, my play, and the ad was me looking real strack, because I'm a military guy and I'm in, you know, I'm in a sleeveless t-shirt. We used to call them wife beaters. You can't call them that anymore. Then we used to call them Dago tees. You can't call them that either. Anyway, so I'm not calling them that just so you get that right. That's what we used to call them. Now they're sleeveless t-shirts and I'm looking all strack. And Margie Simpkins sees the ad and she goes, huh, hey Jim, do you know Stephen Lang? And Jim goes, good actor. Almost cast him in Aliens. True. Why? And she shows him the picture. And he looks at it and he goes, huh, Quaritch. And that's why they call me, and that's how I ended up getting this role in Avatar, which was quite life-changing for me. And so it is specifically and directly because of Beyond Glory. And Beyond Glory is specifically and directly because Gods and Generals failed. So there you go, right? Yeah. Anyway.
And how'd Avatar do?
We're not done with it. It's still chugging along.
Yeah, always losing to armies of blue people, right? Well, so the new Museum and Visitor Center opens here with a foundation. You were there at the opening and you did another piece that wasn't part of Beyond Glory, but was...
well, you talk about my relationship to Gettysburg, and then maybe we can open up to some questions if you like at some point. But when the 105th, the opening of the it was the opening of the Visitors Center. They asked me if I would do something. And so I took with Beyond Glory, I had kind of created for myself this format that worked, this kind of first-person testimonial format about Medal of Honor recipients. So I kind of had a suspicion that were quite a few Medal of Honor recipients from the Battle of Gettysburg. And I researched some and came across James Jackson Perman, who was first lieutenant with the 140th Pennsylvania, Zook's Brigade, Hancock's Corps, I think. And I loved his story. It took place in the wheat field, and I ended up doing a piece called The Wheat Field that we premiered at this opening of this museum. And you know, it played really well. It played nice, you know, played good.
So you do a one-man show, that becomes a short film, an animated film, and that also becomes...
Well, the reason it became an animated film was then 5 years later was the 150th anniversary of the battle. And again, I was asked to do something, and so I'd been thinking about it, and I thought, ooh, I think what would be good, would be cool, would be to take the piece that I do, the dramatic piece I do, and turn it into an animated film. And there were reasons that prompted me to think that. And so I drafted these two young fellas who I love, the Smith brothers. They're Alexander and Adrian Smith, identical twins, African-American kids who were just brilliant, who were friends with my youngest daughter in school, in New York, in art school. And I drafted them, and we did a film, which was a 10-minute version of my own solo piece, which is 18 minutes. And it's the film is less sophisticated. It's for a younger thing. And we premiered that for the 150th, and la da da, and you know, and so. So what happens is over the time you've accumulated a whole number of kind of appearances and things here, and in some way you get kind of identified with the place, or you know, or whatever, and so that's kind of it. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite moments. Was I did battlefield tour working with my dad, who of course is a historian and professor here at Gettysburg College, and we did an audio tour, and the perfect voice was, of course, you know, the greatest character actor of his era, and now one of the great stars of Hollywood. And of course, and this is probably early January of 2010, and obviously this is Avatar had gone from this, what is it going to be, to being the biggest film in the world. You're on an aircraft carrier, and within 12 hours of asking you to do the voiceover, the narration for that, you responded, absolutely yes. And so you did the narration for our auto tour. That became the film you just saw, the Gettysburg story. And Slang's been here for that. He's been doing a lot of just wonderful stuff with Gettysburg.
You were on tour with me. Did you come to Afghanistan or to
For Beyond Glory, yeah. Yeah, me and Ron. Afghanistan, Persian Gulf.
Ron, stand up. Turn.
Do you need water? Come on.
Please hold your applause. Ron has been working. He's my stage manager from 2000. What? 2012. Whatever. He's been my stage manager for a long time, and he takes care. Now that my memory and everything else is failing, he takes care of a lot of stuff. Anyway, he gets it done. Don't lend him money.
Yeah. Speaking of which.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's this whole body of work, and then of course the most recent thing is in this building right now. You just walked through it. Is you're the voice of the story of Gettysburg.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful museum you've done here. I applaud Andrew and the staff here. It's really, really stunning. I think. Well done. Great.
All right. Where does Gettysburg go from here then? And then we'll open it up. What do you see for Gettysburg in the years and?
Well, you know, it's got to be a place that's not just about the past, but it's got to be a place that really helps us to chart the course for our future. If we're going to hang together. It is my belief that the Civil War actually didn't end. Subsided, I suppose, for a while, but I think we're in a very heated time right now, and I think it would be pretty wise for us to kind of heed some of the lessons that maybe we can learn from a place like this, because this place represents many, many things, but what it represents, probably if one had to pick the main thing, is an American tragedy, because this is a site of death, is what it is, where people could not reconcile, and that's what we really need to do. And if Gettysburg can play a part, you know, I think because of what happened here, it has a very, very symbolic meaning, and if we can give it tangible, you know, have tangible results. So aside from the beauty of the battlefield and the wonderful music and just the fantastic atmosphere provided by this place, it would be great if this could become a place, kind of a national symposium on what it really means to coexist, even when we don't have to agree, but we do have to live together, you know.
Yeah.
That means, and that also means really embracing the diversity that is not necessarily represented here just because of the history of the place. But we really do, because we can all benefit from this together, it seems to me. So the diversity is crucial, it seems to me. Yeah, so we're not always just preaching to the choir here, yeah. Anyway.
So we'll take some questions now. So Andrew, you have a microphone, I guess, or perhaps you can shout it out.
I will.
All right, right here.
Out of all the characters that you've portrayed, which is your favorite one that you've played?
Well, so you asked me, of all of my children, which is my favorite child? or of all of my grandchildren, which is my favorite. My favorite grandchild is Ike. Because he's the one that's here. If Tess was here, it would be Tess. Thank goodness I don't have to choose, you know. I love them all. I mean, I feel like a fierce advocate for all of them. There are characters I never want to see again. But as a rule, some of the painful characters I play are ones I'm always anxious to revisit. And the ones that I visited and I'm not going to get a chance to are the ones that hurt. For example, Charlie Winstead in Public Enemies, a character. I wasn't done with Charlie. I would love to do more with Charlie. And then I did a film called Mortal Engines for Peter Jackson, and I play a character, Shrike. He's not a human at all. I love that character, and I wish I could play more of that character. So, but you know, I kind of love them all in their own way, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love you as Pickett, number one. My question is this. Pickett comes in on the horse. He's cocky, he's fearless. The horse raises up, and you know, my question is from somebody from Manhattan, you were really excellent on that horse, and so how did you prepare for all of that?
When I knew I was going to do this part, I very specifically said, I want a rearing horse. Get me a rearing horse, because I knew when I made that entrance, Virginia has arrived, I knew I was going to rear up. I just decided and that's because I'm a real cheap shot actor, you know. I'll do that. I mean, and so the horse that was picked was that. In terms of my own horsemanship, I've always had a very, very strong image of myself as a horseman, even when I wasn't a rider. And that's extremely helpful to do that. I've never been afraid of horses, and I felt good and in preparation for this. I hadn't spent a lot of time on horseback. I'd been on horseback many times, but not in. I'd actually gone one time when we took the kids. I forgot about this. Took the kids to Club Med. I took jumping. So I learned to jump, you know. But for this one, we were here at least 3 or 4 weeks early, and I was just on horseback the whole time with my horse Stormy, and so we got to know each other very, very, very well. So that's what that was about. Yes.
Yeah. Is there a story in history that hasn't been portrayed in a movie or not done well that you wish got the movie treatment?
I'd love to tell the story of the 1913 reunion that happened here, the Grand Reunion. Because to me, Gettysburg is divided into 3 significant things: the battle itself, the words that were spoken by President Lincoln, and then what happened 50 years later when all these old men came together and did what was termed to be a grand reunion, or a reconciliation and not. That's one, you know, just in terms of this. And then other historical moments. If I had my druthers, I'd love to do the Battle of Cannae. You know the Battle of Cannae? You got an hour? It's a beautiful battle. It's where Hannibal kind of essentially invented the double envelopment and crushed 90,000 approximately Romans, and it was the biggest knife fight in history. It was an ugly piece of work, but boy, it was a piece of good generalship. I think that would be a good one to do. You know, gosh, huh?
The elephants.
There were no elephants at Cannae. The elephants were long dead by then. There were no elephants at Cannae at all. 37 elephants crossed the Alps, but 16 of them made it across, and Cannae is 2 years later, and the elephants are long dead by then. Yeah, but then he got them again at Zama. Let's not get started. What else? There's so many other great stories. Yes?
I can shout it. Yeah, just shout it out.
I've always admired actors or anyone. Greetings from Canada, first.
What's that? Oh, thanks for the good air too, fellas.
Actors who have to memorize huge blocks of dialogue has always been amazing to me. Is there a secret to doing that, and has that been difficult for you or easy for you to memorize long when you do Shakespeare? So, I mean, is that easy for you to do? Is there a secret to memorizing all of that at one time?
Well, I don't think. Look, here's how it works. A, B, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, C, 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 B, B, C, B, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, D, 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 A, B, C, D. That's really all it is. The point is you get it in there so you can forget it. You got to get it in there so powerfully so you can forget it. And that's kind of the key to it. It's such a it's a prerequisite to do it. Now you get older, it gets a little more difficult, and so you gotta labor at it a little bit more. But it's never been a big difficulty for me thus far.
That's great. Okay, let me go around here.
Awesome. Hi, again, one of the interns here at the Adams County Historical Society, a student at Gettysburg College. But my question for you is, which character that you've portrayed has been your biggest challenge or the hardest to kind of step into?
Shoot, it's the tough one is the blind man in the Don't Breathe movies. That's a tough place to go to, I think. And but yeah, they're all. If it's worth playing, I mean, they got to be tough. They're not. None of them are easy to do. But again, it's kind of like that other question: what's your favorite one? I don't know. I mean, whatever I'm doing next. I just finished a film, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. And I was just shaking with thought. I can't do this. And then you just shut up and do it. Yeah, it's not a good answer, but it's not a very good question. Just kidding.
Hi, my name is James. I'm actually one of the other interns here. And I was wondering, you mentioned James Cameron's Aliens, which happens to be my favorite movie. Do you remember who you auditioned for that movie?
I know it had to be either Michael Bihn's part or Billy Paxton's part, because those are really the talkers in the thing. And but I can't recall. Jim, if I'm sure he could recall. He may not have known, but he did. I know this because this is what Jim told me, and I was heavily up for it. I was, and then of course, and Bihn wasn't originally cast in that movie. That was my old friend, dear friend of mine. Can't remember his name, but he ended up getting. Had to leave the country because of a drug thing, and moron. Whatever. Anyway, it worked out good. I always look at my Aliens audition and getting Avatar as the longest callback in the history of Hollywood. 18 years later, Jim came to his senses.
When did you decide to become an actor? How old were you, and did you ever think of doing anything else before that?
I don't think so. I think that I decided to be an actor when I was very, very young. I sort of assumed I would be. And I was never discouraged from doing it by my folks. And it's all I ever really kind of felt that I wanted to do. I do think that acting is maybe not for everybody, but I think acting is a calling. It's not unlike the priesthood in that respect. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good actor or a good priest, but it does mean that you were born to do it. I'm very fortunate in that I knew what I was kind of born to do, you know. I didn't have to kind of flounder around. It's a tough thing to do because you want to do it, you want to be an actor, and nobody's letting you. It's not like, you know, if you're a sculptor, you can sculpt. If you're a painter, you can paint. If you're an actor, what are you going to do? Stand in front of the mirror? Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll do 2 more.
Hi, my name's Colleen, and I know my husband here, Wayne, has a question for you too. It's basically a statement. Years ago, we were lucky enough to meet you when we were working as concierge at the Wyndham Hotel here in Gettysburg. And then later, we met you at the Federal Point Inn when you were here, and I screwed up your credit card there. But anyway, that's another story. But my main part is, we were fortunate enough to purchase a business here in Gettysburg, the Antique Center, and we purchased a lot of work by photographer Rob Gibson, who took a lot of wet plate photography of you. So we purchased a great big set of glass plate negatives of you as Jackson and Gods in General. So my only thing that I wanted to say was, I have more pictures of you in my house than the rest of my family.
And I can say my wife adores you absolutely, sometimes more than me. But my question is that I met you once at the Federal Point Inn, and I got the opportunity to make you a cup of coffee on the Keurig machine. And I asked you then, I said, well, what about this Pickett guy? I said, do you really think he did his job when he was here at Gettysburg? And then I asked you, the other question was, do you think if Jackson had been here, would they have won the battle?
Is that a question? If things would have unfolded, you know, what is it, the butterfly effect, you know? If Jackson had not been killed at Chancellorsville, who knows if Gettysburg ever would have occurred in the first place. And I do think that, you know, Jackson was such a significant figure that things could well have altered. I would say that, let's say that Jackson lived and that things went down just the way they went down. I think that puts him in charge rather than Baldy Ewell. Is that correct?
Yeah, right here. Yeah.
Jackson would have taken the hill. I mean, come on. He wouldn't have backed off. Baldy was a little bit, you know, he'd gotten tenuous. Yeah, he was wounded. Didn't he get? He was. Yeah, he lost a leg.
He got hit in the peg leg on Lincoln Square, right?
So you know, so I think that Jackson would have gone ahead with the whole thing. I would think, you know. So I guess we can be pleased that Jackson wasn't here, being a, you know, all things pointing to the contrary. I am a staunch Union man.
Okay, we have one more question.
The last. Hi, sir. It's nice to meet you and hear you speak. So you are a staunch Union man, but do you think, Mr. Lang, that you could give us a rebel yell? General Pickett, the people demand it.
I'll do one if we all do it together, all right? All right, and that's a good way to end, isn't it? Yeah. So let's, we'll go, you know, on the count of 3, let's do a good rebel yell all together. Ike, you're in it too, you know. What a rebel yell is, you just kind of screech as loud as you can. You know, you want to just scare the living daylights out of everybody, you know. So 1, 2, 3.
Once again, Stephen Lang, everyone.